right, everybody. We got another very special guest for you all, a returning guest and publisher for one of our favorite comic companies out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
Mr. Peter Simeti. Welcome, Peter.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to be here for this interview because I think I missed out on the last one. In the middle of the second campaign for King Cryptid, super pumped for that. I checked out the first half there and I loved it. So there it is.
Encrypted.
There's a short box. I
Yeah,
think it's
there you
awesome.
go.
Get it,
That's
bud.
great.
Pimp it off, Chris. Yeah. So Peter, let's talk about that book. Yeah, what is King Cryptid for the people that out there that haven't read it yet or checked it out?
All right, sure. Yeah, King Cryptid is a supernatural hero. He resides in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. He's about 500 years or so old. The thing is, he used to be a human being, and he was cursed and betrayed. And he was cursed to be not necessarily in the form that he's currently in. He was cursed to be in this really grotesque, feral, horrible, monstrous state. So picture the way he looks now, which would be he looks like this guy right here.
Yep.
But he's more snarly and twisted, and his crown of bones is a bit kind of jagged. He's got red eyes. He's foaming at the mouth. He's just very ferocious looking thing. That was what he was cursed to be at, and he was cursed to kind of kill, eat whatever the hell he could. So he did that for about 100 years, and in that cursed state, he was powerless to do whatever to stop it. So he was still having humanity on the inside. He was aware of what he was doing. So picture yourself in like a dreamlike state, and you have no control over the dream. So he's doing these things. He sees through eyes that don't feel like his own. And he's doing these horrible things for 100 years, killing animal, human, whatever, eating them. So there was all this legend that got built around this creature because of the fact that this was what was going on. Around 100 or so years, this Wampanoag shaman, Black Moon, and we're going to touch upon this more in the story, but I'm kind of giving a little bit of a gist behind the character for those that maybe want to have an inside scoop, comes across this figure, and he knows who this might be from all the stories and legends he's heard. So he pretty much gives him this cosmic moonstone. He's brave enough to go up to this creature, and he talks to him, and he kind of is able to, with the help of this moonstone, put the creature back into a state of not humanity, but a subdued state. And by doing this, and by placing this cosmic moonstone, it's right there in the crown, above the third eye, kind of thing. By doing that, it brings out the humanity of King Cryptid again, but he stays in this beastly form. It calms down a bit, but he stays as a beast, as a monster, as a creature. So with the moonstone, it augments his power. It also decreases his power, depending upon the phases of the moon. So it has to get charged up. Think of it as a lunar cell. So as the moonbeams of a full moon are able to fully charge and kind of amp up his power set, he's got healing factor, super strength, flight. He's got a bit of not necessarily just telepathic ability, though he can communicate with animals and cryptids. But he also kind of has psychic ability in terms of being able to conduct that psychic energy at times. And he'll be doing a lot more with that moonstone as the series goes on. But when it's on the night of a new moon, where he can't get that charge from those moonbeams, what happens is that he depletes his power. So the more he depletes his power, we touch upon that in issue 2, on the night of a new moon, he's got to go back to this cosmic spring that's located inside of this cave. And this spring was formed eons ago when a giant meteorite essentially crashed into the side of the cave and brought along with it a lot of different things, and a lot of mineral deposits were formed inside of this spring. So by him going in there and kind of healing up and restoring his power, he's able to kind of keep that curse at bay. But if he doesn't do that, the curse takes over again, and he tries everything he can to possibly not go down that road. But if the curse does take over again, he's pretty much back in that feral state where he's killing and eating whatever comes across his path, until again the light of the moon shines on that moonstone and restores his humanity once again. So that's the gist of King Cryptid for the most part. He's not a king of the cryptids. We touch upon that inside of the of issue 3 a little bit, but even in issue 1 we mention it. So it's like Bigfoot, he's described as Bigfoot because it's a Bigfoot. A Mothman. It's a moth that's kind of like a man.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, it's
Yeah, yeah.
it's a descriptive name. It's not necessarily, he's this regal king of the creatures or whatever it is. Although there have been legends that make him think that have placed him as such. So we do a deep dive into that eventually, but we don't get there just yet. So to us, he's known as King Cryptid, but King Cryptid's real name, the only thing that he can even remember from his time as a human being is his true name, which is Crowan. And he's done a job of trying his best to remember that. He remembers that word. He remembers that word. He clings to it. It's the only thing that reminds him that he wasn't always this monster. And he hopes that one day maybe he won't always be this monster because it's been 500 or so years. He don't even know if he could die. He's seen a lot of people die. He's killed quite a lot of people when he was in a cursed state, but he doesn't know if he could die. So even when he turns into this killing creature thing or whatever it may be, or even when he gets really wounded, he's still not aware if he can die. He's never been pushed to that point yet. He's been hurt really bad and everything else, but he's got that healing factor and it's helped him out. So King Cryptid along the way has met a lot of different characters, a lot of friends, a lot of foes. The whole series revolves around him and his world and the different things that he's coming across. Now, within the series itself, the way that it starts and the way that it's set up is essentially that he hasn't really been around all too much. No one's really seen him in about 30 years. They think this thing is basically just a legend completely and totally. A generation or so has passed. But then all of a sudden now he's coming back again. And the reason he's coming back again is because he's starting to see more and more things going down that don't quite sit right with him. And he's seeing how he defines it as dark magic being combined with corrupt science. There's a lot of experimentation going on. There's a lot of different abductions that are occurring. There's a lot of things in his neck of the woods that he's not too fond of. And he's basically just trying to protect his little corner of the world. So the world itself is starting to encroach upon that. And he's starting to say, you know what, enough's enough. I have to do something about it.
Important lore question here. When the Moonstone reaches its full power, does he evolve into Wigglytuff?
I wish, but I'd get sued, so I guess
Yeah,
not.
I can't do that. That's damn. That's a shame. Uh, you know what I liked about the first set of issues, 1 through 4. They on their own, they're standalone stories. Kind of focusing on a different cryptid and what have you. But then you talked about the experimentation and the things going on behind the scenes. So there is that overarching plot, right?
Yeah.
Happening behind the scenes. Do we get a little more insight into that in the next set?
Yeah. Especially for him. So the first 4 have built up kind of a momentum in the cast of characters as well. But the next 5, what's going to be going down, because that's what's going on, and we're funding right now, is issues 5 to 9. He really starts to see, and he at one point specifically pieces together some of the things going on, that a few of these things really don't add up, and it's looking more and more suspicious. Like, it's not just something's going on, there's a government agency, or there's something going on with the world, or whatever it may be. It looks like there's more of a purposeful, sinister plot being played out here. And he got a little glimpse of that within issue 1, but he really gets it laid out that this is something widespread that's occurring. It's not just even in his corner of the world. This is across the board. So yeah, we really do kind of lay that out and go a little bit further with that. And then the thing is, I got about 40 issues mapped out, so it's really
Wow.
difficult for me to not spoil certain things that occur,
Right.
as much as I'd like to, because it'd just be fun to talk about them. But it's things like, in a couple of years down the road, all of these different things are being laid out with certain breadcrumbs here and there for the story elements. There's a lot of different layers to it. But these 5 issues in particular, we're introduced to the White Mountain Yeti. We're introduced to this dragon, the dragon Vanderkin, which is essentially, I don't know if you're familiar with New Hampshire geography or landmarks at all, but there's this thing called the Old Man of the Mountain, which is basically kind of like the state visage of New Hampshire. Even though the face has kind of fallen off over the past few years, it looks like the profile of a man's face.
Yep.
So the dragon basically makes a home on the top of the old man, and the old man is essentially like a mentor to King Cryptid. King Cryptid goes to him when he's kind of confused. He doesn't know what's going on. He kind of confides in him because the old man's 12,000 years old. King Cryptid, even though he's as old as he is, this dude's so old that he saw civilization develop all around, and everything on the earth changing at that point in time with human beings. So he tries to give him advice as best as he can, and King Cryptid really, he means something to him, but it pisses him off when this dragon is kind of making a home out of his friend. It doesn't help either that the dragon basically also kidnaps 3 tourists and has them up there, and he doesn't know what is going to be going on with them.
Yeah.
So King Cryptid's got to do something about it, and that's the plot of issue 6. Issue 7, we're introduced to Wendy the werewolf. We have a little bit where we touch back in 1821 at Dogtown Village in Massachusetts.
Nice.
There's a nice wolf witch kind of plot going on, and then we fast forward a bit to modern day, and we go up to Jackson, New Hampshire, where these things are occurring, where it looks like something's killing the livestock and now killing one of the kids in the local town. So now that the villagers, the townsfolk are pissed off, they want something done about it, and a covert task force comes in to take care of it. King Cryptid, of course, steps in the way, and we find out what goes on with the werewolf situation, more or less. Issue 8, we kind of pick up where issue 3 left off, and it's an alien abduction story, essentially.
Nice.
But there's more to it than that. So if you read the first 4 issues, issue 3, and you're looking to pick up with issue 8, we pick up there. And then issue 9, we go and we talk about puckwudgies. And puckwudgies are in Wampanoag folklore.
Yeah.
They're these, in Wampanoag folklore, traditionally, they're these kind of like 3 foot tall, mischievous. They're almost like a goblin-y leprechaun kind of vibe to them. They used to like human beings, but somewhere along the lines, humans betrayed them, and now they don't really like human beings anymore. So they play tricks on them. Sometimes they're deadly tricks. In King Cryptid, they still play tricks and whatnot, but they're shapeshiftery in this one. Or at the very least, that's how King Cryptid interprets it. So he feels like he can't trust his senses because these things are playing tricks on him. They've basically trapped him and captured him, and they're bringing him back as an offering for their father. Who their father is, we find out in the issue. But yeah, so it's an episodic series, as you could tell.
Yeah.
But there's an overarching plot that connects everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed in reading through it, and I mean, it says it right in Indiegogo as well, and I'd love to hear as to why artistically you chose this, is most of the issues are full color and that great newspaper paper stock and everything, but then 1 or 2 of them are just black and white. Just curious to the purpose of that artistically.
Well, okay, so the second issue, which is a black and white issue, it's on the night of a new moon, and looking at it, if we were to color it, it would have been so barely colored as it was that it didn't really make much sense to go into the colors. And Nick Hunter does such a great job with his, I actually have the issue at arm's length right here. He does such a great job with his black and white artwork.
Oh yeah, it was such a beautiful issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like a shame to put any color on that. He will have colors on his work in issue 5, but in issue 6 and issue 7, we go back to black and white for those issues. And issue 6, again, it's a bit of a artistic choice in terms of the tone of the story. And then issue 7, we really wanted to establish that kind of artwork again. It's on the night of a full moon this time around with the werewolf story. And the wolves are albino. They're pure white. So
interesting.
What it is that, and I kind of let it slip with an apostrophe, but the plural of wolves. But oh well. So they're albino, and on the night of the full moon here, where it's mostly an issue taking place at night, Nick's back again, and it felt like it made a lot of sense to stick it with the black and white. People loved it, and I really love his work in black and white too, so it just worked out. But I love the fact that we can kind of switch gears here with depending upon the story, the theme of the issue, and the kind of subject matter that we're doing. Because even the issue with the kids, it's more of an all ages type of issue. Alex really handles it beautifully with the expressiveness of the characters. Because some artists can't draw kids; they could be great artists, but when they draw kids, it's frightening. They're like these tiny adults.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. So you got to have an artist that could draw kids and have that expressiveness to them, that animated style, and keep those features, looking childlike as opposed to looking like tiny 50-year-olds.
You're like these kids have 5 o'clock shadows. What's happening?
Yeah, they got like a lot of lines on their faces. These kids have
Yeah.
been through a lot, I
Yeah, they've
guess.
seen some shit.
Yeah,
They've been working in coal mines or
two
something like
yeah
that.
two tours in Nam.
Yeah.
So it's like, to some artists, they're great, but then when they draw kids, I'm like, man, someone
Yeah.
got to tell these artists they got to tone it down a bit. You're drawing children.
Right. That's hilarious. That's awesome. I'm still getting all the books after all the spoilers, by the way, but I'm super pumped for the
Good. Well,
next
no
series.
matter what I say, and I said it on the first 4, I talked about the books a lot, and everyone's like, "You're giving so much away."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Don't worry. When you read the first 4, you're going to be like, oh, Pete barely really talked about much of anything."
Right.
Because there's so much to each issue, and
There's a
there's so
lot
many
going on.
layers to the story. Yeah.
And it's not a heavy read, though. I mean, the way you write, it's not like there's not a lot of exposition all up in your face. So
Yeah.
you still have a good approach on this. It doesn't feel like a dense read, but there is a lot. You're building a lot within that world.
Yeah. And that's helped a lot by your art team as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're great because what happens is when I write the script, what it is I give them the scene. I don't do a full-fledged detailed script. I describe it as if I'm telling them the story without saying, this person says that, this is what the panel looks like, this is how you should draw it. I'm just describing each page and what's occurring scene by scene. And then I let them know I have a lot of trust in them because they know what they're doing. They're so talented. I don't want to kind of hold them back. And I say, draw how you picture this scene to be. Now, if I want it to be a specific page looking a certain way, like a splash page, or if I want a certain moment to be zeroed in on because that dialogue is going to be important, then I'll write that out. But 90% of the script is me just describing the scene. They go in it, they thumbnail it, they go, how does this look? More often than not, it looks fantastic. It's better than anything I could have explained. And then when they do the whole page, I'm able to retroactively script it and work with their art. So it's not that the art becomes a slave to the words, because this is a comic book. So the art should really be the thing that sings, and that should be the thing that's on the top. The writing's important, but it's a visual medium. So it's important for me to adjust my script, my words, to their art and make sure that it's working and it's cohesive.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And something I've asked other publishers that work at some of these different smaller publishing houses that also print their books through them, and I'd love to hear your version of this. Is you are the publisher for Alterna, you're head honcho, whatever you want your label to be. What goes into the decision when you decide you want your book to be under the line? Like, how does that decision come about, and how much do you put into it in terms of your thoughts and everything?
I might have to ask you to rephrase that. What specifically do you mean?
So is it correct to say that you're in charge of what books get published and don't get published through Alterna?
Yeah.
So when you have an idea and a comic that you want to put out, like in the past, I believe the book was The Chair that you put out in the past,
Yep.
and you decide I want to create this book and all this, to slap that Alterna logo on it means something beyond just your book and your artistic vision. It's also a company that you're in charge of. So I guess my question is, like, was there any hesitation to be like, maybe I should shop this somewhere else, or it might look
No,
bad if I do
never.
it at Alterna?
I
Or
think if anything, I've seen other creators do things like that have a publishing company, and I've had even submissions come in where they have their own publishing company and they want me to publish it too. And I always wonder why. Why? If you have your own publishing company, put it through yours. Why are you putting it out somewhere else? Why did you even start a publishing company really to begin with? Because that's how Alterna got started. Essentially, was me self-publishing, and then it kind of picked up other people along the way. Now, does that mean that if the book isn't selling, that it still sticks around? No, no. So it plays by the same rules at that point. So if King Cryptid's a flop and no one wants it, it doesn't just keep getting shoved down everybody's throat. It's time to put it away. Um, but with King Cryptid especially, it's really seemed to resonate with readers, which is so great. And I'm excited to get it out there. And it's the first time I've had the ability to put a story out in about 13 or so years. And I've definitely learned a lot since I've been putting out books like The Chair. But even then, it's one of those things where if I had to shop that around somewhere else, or I felt that someone might think it's strange, I would go, I don't know. I think it'd be stranger for me to put it out at any other publisher, and then now I'm promoting that publisher and giving them the attention and the money, and now all of a sudden my interests are completely and utterly divided.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
now I'm
right.
promoting a
Yeah.
competitor essentially. Or if I set up a separate imprint for myself, I would then start competing against myself, which would also be kind of strange to do as well. So, yeah, there wasn't ever really a question about that. But like I said, if it wasn't resonating, if it wasn't selling, the same rules would apply, and then it would be up for cancellation too.
Yeah, I always think it's a catch-22 on that end, because if you put it somewhere else, like you said, it looks weird because you're promoting somebody else. But then you got people who look at it and be like, "Oh, Peter's putting on his label. Like, of course, he gets to print whatever he wants."
Right.
You have
And it's
both
like,
ends of it.
yeah, and if they had their label, I'd encourage them to do the same thing. Otherwise, what are you, an idiot?
Yeah, right. Right.
If you have that much faith in your project, I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
makes sense.
That's how
Yeah.
I view it. You're putting your money where your mouth is, because if anything, if you're going to produce something and you're like, well, I wouldn't publish that on my label, I'll go give that to somebody else. I already think like a million different things here. I'm thinking, you don't really believe in your work. You're not really caring about the company you've created. And then I'm also thinking, is this like a publicity stunt? Is this a gimmick to try to like take some of their audience and then bring them back eventually to you? So, and then even with other publishers too, not all of them do creator owned. So, you could be signing away some of the rights. And if you're going to be putting something out, why not put it on your own label and own the thing? That's what the whole thing's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point about that. I was just surprised you had the time to get 5 issues out in one campaign. So
It's amazing what you can do when you're not a part of the diamond grind.
yeah, that's true. When you have the time to take to
Yes.
write those issues, right?
Yeah, that's literally it. And it's not like I have a whole hell of a lot more time, but I have enough time where I can actually do something with that. And then the way King Cryptid is done, where I can hire different artists, so I don't have to depend upon one artist to do all the issues. I can kind of like a general manager of a sports team say, you play that position, you play this position, and you basically hire people for the right position, and you make them play to their strengths. Now, if I'm going to hire someone like I was talking about with the kids before, if I'm going to hire someone that can't really draw kids to draw the book that has lots of kids in it, that's a stupid move. That's you're playing people out of position and asking them to play now to a strength when you just put them behind. You're telling your pitcher to go be a catcher. You're telling your first baseman to go be a center fielder. It makes no sense. So you have to play people to their strengths. And when you're doing that, especially with artists, and you want them to not just produce good work because you're playing them to their strengths, but you want to make sure that they're also enjoying what they're drawing, so they're having fun, and it shows. If they're not enjoying what they're doing, that book is going to look tortured. It's going to look like they want to do anything but draw the book, and it's going to come through, and the art's going to suffer for it. The story's going to suffer for it. So I make sure that I'm getting artists that they want to draw that kind of subject matter. They love drawing certain kinds of characters, and they love making certain kinds of stories. Maybe they have an inclination more to sci-fi or fantasy or horror or action or whatever it may be. But I make sure to cast the right artist for the right role, essentially.
Right.
Definitely. So you're running issues 5 through 9 now on Indiegogo.
Yep.
And as we're recording this, you're It's over 6,000, almost 6,500 in the bag. And we've got, as usual with alternative books, one of the things that's really great with your line is the books are cheap.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
they're
also want to
also
let
really
you know,
good,
though,
everybody.
we've got the campaign on both Alterna and Indiegogo. So if you scroll down on the Indiegogo, you see the combined total of what the campaign is truly at.
Yes, I knew you had an alternate. I wasn't realizing you were combining the two on here.
Yeah, I make
Okay.
You
sure on
got
the
so much
Indiegogo to
promo
put it
image
there
on here, man.
too.
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
know. It's
Love
There's
it.
awesome. I
there's a
love it.
there's a lot to show. I wish I could show even more, but I'd be giving too much away.
Yeah. I know I'm pumped for the trading cards. Can you talk about those? Like, how did you come about doing those?
Oh yeah, the trading cards are awesome. So
Yeah.
I got one right here, and this is
Nice.
number 7. But the trading cards add an extra layer to the story. So each issue of King Cryptid has a front and a back cover when you flip
Mm-hmm.
it,
Yep.
and that's every issue for the series for forever. So on the trading card set, I always thought it'd be great if there was a trading card set, and a couple publishers have done it, but then they drop off. But every single cover was published as a card. So like this, we have the cover A, I guess you could say, as a trading card, but then cover B is a trading card as well. Now on the back of cover A, we have just basically what the issue's about, first appearances, information like that, publishing info. But then on the back of cover B's card has what are called it's a Necro case file. And Necro is the New England Cryptid Research Organization. And this organization is essentially a front. It's basically a front for doing black budget research. And if you're not familiar with black budget research, it's basically where all the I don't know where that money went in the government goes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So especially when you're talking about defense spending, Pentagon, et cetera, when they're like, I don't know where $3 trillion went. It's
Yeah.
just it's an accounting error. They go to all these black budget projects. These are super special access, top secret projects. And Necro is one of these divisions where this money goes. And they have a case file on the back of these cards that is detailing the events as they see it and as they've documented it. Now, when you read that, sometimes they're going to go along with what the issue has said, and then sometimes they're really not. Sometimes it's going to be a cover story. Sometimes it's going to be something else. So the readers out there that get the trading cards, and we're going to keep doing the trading cards for as long as we do the series, you're going to get an extra level of story to that when you get to read those trading cards and the Necro case file and what they're reporting as to what happened, as opposed to you read the issue, you got the gist of it, you got the objective report of the issue, and then you read their report and you're like, wait a second, that's not really what happened. So
Yeah.
it gives you that little extra layer of storytelling and perspective.
That's really cool.
And to correct myself, everybody, funding is up above 15,000.
Yes.
There you go.
It's quite a bit more.
But
Would you say, Peter, because you are doing an indie and Alterna, is there would there be a preferred place to back, or is it just either
I
or?
would encourage people that even if they want to go to Indiegogo, go check out the Alterna site. I would say that the Alterna site would be a better place to back if you want to get a lot of other things at Alterna as well, because you can do that in one shot. You can get like
Yeah.
400 something other items if you want. Shipping's a flat rate. If you spend $30 or more on the Alterna site and you're in the US, shipping's free. If you spend, if you get all 400 something items on the Alterna site and you live in Canada, shipping's still just going to be $25. If you go in there and you spend that, and and you're outside of Canada and the US, it's going to be 35. So it remains a flat rate. Now, of course, if you then go on and then you order stuff 2 or 3 or 4 months later during the course of the campaign, then you pay shipping again. If you want me to combine everything and then ship it to you, just send us a message and let us know, and then we'll deduct the shipping and we'll refund the shipping charge that was on the second one. Sometimes people let us know, sometimes people don't. Sometimes people just flat out go, I know I'm paying extra shipping, keep it, it's a tip. You guys, you got $2 comic books.
Yeah, right.
So they're like,
Exactly.
we could,
Yeah.
do the extra $5 or the $20 or whatever if we're in Canada.
Right. That's how I've always felt when I want to like go to your site and scratch the itch of buying, because I'm usually all digital now, but I'll head over to Alterna and just like, yeah, I'll add this one to my cart, add this. Oh man, I'm still under $20. Okay, I can add a few more books. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The digital books are great on King Cryptid, especially. We've got the simulated newsprint on the digital books. But I absolutely encourage getting the physical print books if
For
you
sure.
can. That's the best way to enjoy it.
And I will say that I'm all digital now, but I did buy the physical for King Cryptid. So just the, like you said, the art and that newspaper style is what I'm after when it comes for physical books. I love that. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
and the
ours. I mean, for those that don't know what everyone's talking about, so you got the glossy cover, but then on the inside you've got and you can see because there's no glare.
yep,
We've got the newsprint, and the newsprint looks great still.
yeah, it's amazing.
Some
It
people go, "Oh, you can't have modern, coloring on newsprint. It's going to look like
Yeah, you
crap."
can.
Well, you just got to know how to prep it. That's all.
Yeah, it
What's
looks
funny to
awesome.
me about that too is I notice because the big two especially have been messing around with different printing styles and different paper and everything, and I think DC has moved over to this not glossy kind of hard paper stock, which is really nice. But I sit there and go, just go back to newsprint. Your books won't be $4,
Right.
or they still probably will be because it's DC, but they don't
Yeah,
have to be $4, and they still
Yeah,
look great because I buy these books at Alterna, like Tinseltown and Legend of Log and King Cryptid, and they look phenomenal. So
that's
it,
the
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the problem once you're owned by like mega conglomerates. You don't want to go, "Hey, look, we could do this amazing thing for our customer base and lower the price $1 a book, and we'll probably gain more customers, and it'll offset." And then the person in charge is just like, "You just told me that we're going to lose money." That's all they keep hearing. It's like after
Mhm.
that, it's the Charlie Brown noise. It's
yeah.
just
Womp
wah,
womp
wah,
womp womp.
wah,
Yeah.
wah.
Yeah.
But if it
Oh,
was just comic companies, they could go, "Yeah, that would be great. We could do that for the readers." And that's what we're doing. So we're gonna keep doing newsprint for as long as we possibly can. It absolutely is cheaper, but you do still have to print a certain amount. You do still have to in total of the run. You have to print at least 3,000 copies.
mm-hmm.
So we easily hit that, but there's situations where if you're an indie and you're just printing one book, let's say, maybe you need 500 or 1,000 or whatever. You're like 3,000. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with 3,000 books other than I've got new furniture.
Yeah,
You throw a drape over it and
right.
say,
It's a
"Here's the
coffee
yeah,
table.
exactly." So I get where people are coming from on that level, but we've been blessed with this printer, especially because I think this is maybe the fourth or fifth one we've used, and they're hands down the best to work with. I love the quality they're putting out, but it was we've been doing newsprint now for 6 years, so it was a 6 year journey to find these guys. I mean, we've been with them for two, but still, it's tough finding a real solid printer
Mm-hmm.
that you can work with. You can depend on them. They understand that condition matters. You'd be
Hmm.
surprised how many printers, especially in newsprint,
Yeah,
because with newsprint they're used to printing, grocery store flyers
right,
and things that don't matter.
right. Yeah,
They're
that
gonna
get
throw them
bundled
out.
up and thrown out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when you tell them, "Hey, look, can you like treat these things like they're gonna be bought and cherished?" They're just
yeah,
it's you're speaking another language.
yeah.
But these guys, they get it, and I'm so grateful for that.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've noticed that when you open the book and the newsprint quality, you I mean, from what I've seen in the past, you don't expect the colors and the art to pop like it does, but it really does, like you said.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it leads to like I said earlier, a cheaper product. I mean, you go to the Indiegogo and you've got $5 for the digital bundle, and if you want to get the physical, 15. And if you go to Alterna's website, which I guess now I'd recommend, the whole 5 issues is cheaper. It's let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, $12, and then
Yeah.
shipping, of course. But
yeah,
Still, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Because
That's really
yeah.
cheap.
on the Alterna site, we can offer the option where you can get them signed or not. And so this way I can actually say, because they're all signed on the Indiegogo, but on the
Hmm.
alternate side, if you don't want them signed, you just pay cover price, and that's that. And the cover price on the King Cryptid issues is $225 for the new ones coming out. For the old ones coming that just came out is $1.99. But yeah, like you said, you get these 5 comics, and you're not really paying a whole hell of a lot. I mean, that's how much like 2 issues maybe nowadays might cost you for the cost of the 5 comics.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I know
And
I appreciate the ad perks you usually run when you do your campaigns because for a full page or half page ad, because we've done a couple, and I think Unit 44 or something like that, but
Yeah.
Wolf and Batsy, but that's a cheap price for a full page ad in a comic book, especially one that you're at least handing out 3,000 copies of. You know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like
So
in total between all of the King Cryptids that sold, it was about 2,500 to 3,000 copies.
yeah, awesome.
So and I always encourage, if someone's going to get ad space in print, especially, you make sure that you design it so that someone even a year or 2 or 3 from now can find it and still go to your website or whatever it may be.
Right. Yep.
If you're doing something that's a little more time sensitive, like it's a campaign, I don't really recommend going print unless you do have something that says, check out the campaign on there and then go to the website, if you find that the campaign's over, that kind of a thing. But you always want to design that ad to get the most out of your ad dollar. And it's not expensive. Like you said, it's $25 for a full
Yeah,
page.
it's
You get
crazy.
a back cover for $100,
Yeah.
and the thing is that we'll reprint those ads too if we ever go back to print. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's something where it's a one-time thing and that's that. And then also we put those ads in the digital versions too. So you're hitting a whole other audience on that level on top of it. But yeah, I recommend anybody to go check that out. We'll have ads up eventually for the King Cryptid campaign, probably August 1st.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I know you guys usually do them a little later, but um, yeah, I can't wait for the next set of books. And before we let you go today, I know we've taken quite a bit of your time already. Um, I grew up in the New England area, so I lived in Massachusetts for a long time. But did you have like an interest in all the cryptid and folklore and stuff like that? Of because there seems to be quite a bit in New England, right? So
Oh yeah.
was that always an interest of yours before you started doing this
Yeah,
story?
it
Yeah.
was, but and all that stuff was always an interest. I was interested in that more for a longer period of time than I was interested in comics. Not too
Oh,
long.
okay.
So I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old,
Hmm.
interested in like the pyramids and UFOs and Bermuda
Oh man.
Triangle and Bigfoot, and you know, it fascinated me because it's these things that they say that don't exist, but they do exist.
Hmm. Right.
So it's all and then if they exist, they don't know how they were made. There's
Yeah.
it's endlessly fascinating. It still is. um so it kind of is what got me into comics. A lot of my first comics revolved around those kinds of themes, of these things that seemed larger than life, and do they exist? I don't know, how's it possible? So all these different kinds of characters that were out there, especially the supernatural type of characters, really interesting to me. And even the idea of Batman being like an urban legend, even though like you're reading the comics, there's a bit of a dramatic irony to it.
Hmm.
Who he is, he's a human being, but then to some people on the streets of Gotham, he's this myth, he's this
Right.
thing that isn't really, is he human, is he a creature, who the hell
Right.
knows, to some of these guys. So all those things really interested me. And the folklore in the New England area is so deep that I had what I thought was a pretty good understanding of a lot of it. And then doing a lot of research for this book to kind of tie in some things, you go down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
and just discover there's an endless amount of stuff here. And I mean, even New Hampshire being the first recorded, anyway, in America, alien abduction with the
Yep.
Benny and Barty Hill, that whole thing with them. I mean, and that I'm going to touch upon a little bit more of that. Some of my theories behind that are going to, and various other things are going to work themselves into the King Cryptid series. But that whole thing with them is crazy.
Right.
Because I mean, they went under hypnosis at various different times,
Hmm.
and the story was the same every time. And there was a lot of stuff that had happened with them. And Barney, even, I mean, he unfortunately passed away kind of young. I think he was like in his late 40s.
Well, I don't know what it is about that area, but I lived in Western Mass for almost 6 years, and I remember when they redid Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. There was an episode that came out about the Berkshires where I was living and UFO abductions, and it happened in the town that I was living in, and several towns, to where like it wasn't just one abduction that night; it was several county, like across the county, different towns, and they didn't realize until separate groups of people started contacting the radio station. At first, the radio station was like, "No, you guys are crazy," but like old people, young people, everybody was contacting them, and it's like, how did I never hear about this? So that you're also telling stories, and you're
Yeah.
keeping that folklore alive, because a lot of the times people aren't telling these stories anymore. Like I didn't see that or read that anywhere. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I hope people look up a lot of different things that I mentioned within these issues. I hope it does for another generation of readers, because I feel like King Cryptid is a solid enough series. You could give it to a 10-year-old, or you could read it as an adult, and you could get something out of it. There's nothing tremendously gory. There's no strong language in it. Even though we do have sometimes intense themes within it, all I could think is, the comics I grew up with were like that. I feel like so many things have been dumbed down nowadays to the point that, at least for me, it's difficult to enjoy it. So with King Cryptid, I think it's really great if people are out there and they go, is that real? Is that happening? Has that happened? And then they go look it up, and maybe they go down that rabbit hole too. So it adds another layer to the story for them. So I'm really, like I said, I'm fascinated with the subject matter. I've always been, and I hope it comes across with the stories, and I hope people enjoy them and they get something out of it. But if they're really into the stuff the way I'm into it as well, I think they're going to get something else out of it too. And hopefully it adds a layer of fun to some
Yeah.
of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just real quick, it would be off brand if I didn't ask this question, so I got to ask you: can we expect to see sheep squatch at some point?
That's Chris's favorite.
Sheep squatch, man. Well, the thing about the King Cryptid series is that uh, most of the things that you see, even when we do like a werewolf or a dragon or a yeti, still have a bit of our own spin on it. Either through the origin of the creature or the physicality. Could I work in something that's like a sheep squatch? Yeah, sure, I could work in something that's like a sheep squatch, but it won't be like, the sheep squatch maybe that's near and dear to you.
Yeah, that's the
That's
one we
fine. We
that's
just
the
need
one
to
we
get the word
discovered.
out.
I think we discovered that one day looking up cryptids. I forgot how we found sheep squatch. I was like,
Yeah,
wow, how I never.
the sheep squatch is, I swear, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
There's these things where you're like, how could that possibly exist? And people go, well, if they existed, you'd find the bodies and this and that, whatever. But the thing is, not if it's a cover up, not if
right.
there's some kind of you're not going to find a damn thing, And
Yeah,
then
right.
whoever comes forward with it and drags in the carcass of, a sheep squatch or a
They'd be like,
Sasquatch
no,
or
it's a cow.
whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, um, that person is probably going to go through a really difficult time, or
yep,
is mysteriously going to have a heart attack one day.
yep,
And well, what was there? That was nothing. That was,
yeah.
that was just some kind of roadkill that they brought in.
It's crazy because the I go back to Unsolved Mysteries, the one guy who reported UFOs, and now like 20 years later, people are talking about his story. He lost his job, and like
Yeah,
his career was crushed. Like nobody would hire him. He was the crazy UFO guy, and he just happened to be the guy at the call center that night that took the
yeah.
phone call.
Now there's all these things that are getting disclosed left and right,
Yeah,
and I question a lot of the motive behind it. And that's like a whole conversation for a completely other show.
yeah,
Uh,
right.
but uh, but it's one of those things that every time when I hear stuff like that, all I could think is if the motives are true and they're going, okay, what, enough time has passed, we think we should kind of come clean. All I could think is all the lives that were ruined
Oh
or
yeah,
taken in
right.
some of these cases to keep that secrecy.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
it's insane.
and then when people are so quick to trust the government on every issue, I'm like, really?
Yeah,
All you got
yeah,
to do is look at a couple of different issues within the government to go,
right.
well, that's how deep they'll go to keep a certain secret safe.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And so I don't know how you can just say, well, everything is fine.
yeah.
They're all doing.
They told us it wasn't UFO.
So it isn't. It's
They're
swamp
right.
gas.
Yeah,
And
swamp cast.
yeah, there's so many cases of swamp gas. It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of
Um,
swamps around here I didn't know about.
yeah. And it really is interesting. I mean, we'll even be touching upon, and not by name, but touching a little bit upon even things like MK Ultra and
Nice.
projects
Nice.
like that.
Yep.
That have
Very
been done,
cool.
like these kind of brainwashing kind of projects that have occurred. I mean, for people that maybe think all of this kind of stuff is crazy and cover-ups and conspiracies and things like that aren't real whatsoever. I mean, I think they might be surprised how many different things, even on a show like X-Files, they kind of talked about a lot of different things. They didn't do too much of a deep dive into it,
Right.
but they'd bring it up and,
Yep.
you know, look some of it up, even things like Operation Paperclip. Like it's pretty crazy what has gone on in the world that's 100% real. Like these
Yeah.
aren't, you know, made up. I'm like, you know, I don't know. You come across something one day and you're like, that totally must have a connection to this and that and the other thing, and the crazy conspiracy theorist thing where they got the wall with all the strings
All
and
the
the
strings.
tags,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and that's the image that they want to portray, that most people who have these kind of things are. But all they're really doing is essentially kind of logically piecing things together and doing detective work, more or less. You know, I'm kind of surprised DC Comics hasn't done a story with Batman where he's a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. I never thought
You
about that.
know,
Yeah.
he's the
Right.
world's greatest conspiracy theorist, not
Yeah.
detective anymore,
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist, and that they're trying to pretty much gaslight the public against Batman.
Yeah.
You know, and because that's the world we live in nowadays, where if you are Batman and you're putting the chess pieces, you know, in place and saying I'm 10 moves ahead, I know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Now they call you crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, you know.
There's no way that could all happen
Yeah, there's no, and as it happens,
as it happens. Yeah.
you know, they'll
Right.
find a different way to
Right.
ruin you and make sure no one listens to you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
like I need to pitch to you a new YouTube show where it's Chris and Peter's Cryptid Conspiracy Corner, because I'm foaming at the mouth trying to keep my mouth shut here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll have you on for hosting the hosts. I can have both of you guys on my channel,
Nice.
and
That'd
we
be
could
great.
touch a little bit upon that. That show is essentially where I interview interviewers.
Ah,
You
well,
know, because
here,
I
yeah.
know sometimes people don't often get a chance to get out when and go on to other channels when they're the interviewer.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
so I want to have a channel and a show for you guys to kind of pay it forward, and also go, hey, you know, go check out their show, and then give them a shout out, and hopefully people go over there and go, oh wow, look at all the stuff that's going on over there. But we could definitely touch upon some
Yeah, we love
paranormal,
that.
cryptid, conspiracy stuff.
Yeah, because I certainly could talk UFOs all day, man,
Yeah.
all day. But Peter, I think we've taken enough of your time. We really appreciate you stopping by. And I know we're going to send everybody to Alterna. Do you have any social media stuff like that you want to talk about? Send people to?
I would tell people to follow me on Twitter, but I don't want to tell people to like go onto Twitter if they don't have to. I don't
Yeah,
even want to be
yeah.
there.
I don't. Yeah, none of us do.
So I would
No,
say instead go to YouTube. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/Peter Simeti. You can find me on there. And I do all kinds of different interviews and talk about the books and everything else all the time. So that's a healthier place to be
yeah,
than Twitter.
yeah.
Definitely.
Understandably.
And for everybody out there watching and or listening, make sure to check out those show notes, because there'll be links to the Indiegogo and Alterna's website, so you can check out King Cryptid. And please do. We talked about it in the last episode. Love the book. So make sure to check those links out. Peter,
Thank you
thanks so
guys.
much for
Appreciate
taking
it.
the time, man.
Yeah.
We always love talking to you, and look forward
Thank
to the
you for
next
having
time.
me. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Peter.
Thank you guys.